Good morning, travelers. What is up? This is your host, Spud. I'm coming to you from a hotel somewhere in San Jose, California. I just got back from Europe. It was a great little 10-day trip or something. And I must say that I'm pretty sure I fell in love with the tiny little country of San Marino. As you'll hear later in this episode, I have been trying to knock off some smaller countries I had never been to off of the list of 100 and some odd countries on the UN list, just to try and join something called the Traveler's Century Group. I don't know. It's a weird interest I have. But anyways, so I hit something this week like 67 countries. I saw Monaco, San Marino, which I advise anybody to go to if you've never been. It's basically a tiny little fortress on a mountain surrounded by Italy. It's beautiful. Post a few photos of it on my Instagram. That's at Spud Groshong if you want to check them out. Yeah. So anyway, on today's podcast, we have Jeremy Scott Foster. Jeremy is the travel freak. Oddly enough, we spend a lot of time talking about me, which is unusual, but also, it was a good conversation. We had fun. So, without further ado, I'll send you over to that interview. I hope you have a great day. I'd like to welcome to the podcast Jeremy Scott Foster. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? So what's happening? Where are you right now?
I am at home. I'm in Portland.
I'll be honest, Portland was a lot bigger than I was expecting. And I didn't realize that there were so many little pockets. Like, I kind of just assumed that like Portland had a downtown where like all the primary things happened, but it's really separated, and it's a little bit of a sprawl.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a good spot, man. I'm pretty upset that I didn't give myself more time there.
How long were you even here?
Like 4 days.
You know what? If you didn't leave the city, or if you went to Mount Loma Falls, that's plenty of time.
Well, okay, so I spent the first day pretty much working the entire day. So that whittled it down to 3 days. And then I think I walked around the city for one day, and then I did a huge route in the gorge.
Okay.
I went all the way out to Trillium. I went like past Multnomah Falls and then south to Trillium Lake and then back. I mean, it was like a 10-hour journey.
Yeah. That's kind of the loop people do.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it was a lot more than I was expecting. But I was kind of gutted because the gorge itself had been shut down.
Yep.
Due to the weather, due to landslides, due to whatever. I guess it's getting kind of crazy out there. And that was like the one place I really wanted to go check out. So
it's kind of because in the fall there was this massive fire.
Yes,
and that's why they've kind of got it on lockdown, because that fire was brutal.
Yeah, what happened? Like, what were the implications of that?
So it was like the driest season we'd had in a long time, and some kid threw a smoke bomb into a ravine, and it started a fire. And the fire burnt the entire gorge, basically.
That's ridiculous, man. All because did they find the kid?
Yeah, and I was reading an article this morning or yesterday that they had charged the kid $36.1 million in restitution or something.
Good.
reading the comments is really funny because people are like, they should bring back stoning, they should bring back tar and feathers, they should make that kid redo the fucking paths himself. Like, it was ridiculous.
I mean, that is like, it's like just one simple act of stupidity creates so much turmoil for an entire region.
Yeah.
And not just like the people that live there, but the earth and the land. I mean, it's just sometimes just people. Sometimes I just have such little faith in humanity.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So think about this: like Multnomah Falls is the biggest tourist attraction that Oregon has, and it's been under like kind of they've opened it, but it's not as open as it used to be. Like if there's
when I went, you couldn't get, the only place that you could get to was the viewing point from down below.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to walk up, and maybe this was just because the rains and whatever, but like you weren't allowed to walk up. You couldn't get to the bridge. You couldn't go. I think there's like a little bit of a hiking trail to get to the top of the fall. Like you couldn't do any of that. It was totally locked down.
It's all really kind of sad, but you know, it'll open once there's like a full on like change of all the seasons. They'll know what the sediment's going to do, and it'll be fine eventually.
So where were you when I was in Portland?
That's a good
question. You were
question.
somewhere.
That's a good question. I don't even remember exactly when you were here. Do you remember?
Neither do I.
Usually I'm going to say 90% sure I was on tour somewhere.
On tour? Doing what?
Okay, so I work for bands. Like that's my day job. I'm a sound guy for bands.
That's a sweet gig. I imagine you get to travel quite a bit.
Yeah, and I mean it's really good. But you know, it's like I see the inside of a venue and a bus and like, you know, things that kind of suck when I'm on tour, but it also helps because I usually stay for like a week longer if we travel abroad, or 2 weeks longer, or whatever.
Yeah. I remember I had a friend who did lighting for a lot of for a lot of big groups, and she seemed to always have spare time to go out and see. And she was traveling all over the world, and she seemed to always have spare time to go out and do and see whatever she wanted to.
Yeah, that's when I have the time, it's great. But sometimes it doesn't happen. This summer I'll have a little bit of time, but I mean we're doing a U.S. tour, and I'm literally going to be in a city I've been in 1,000 times every day.
What's next for you?
So on, let's see, Friday I fly to Europe.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Wales for work. And then I'm going to and then I'm just doing like a little train adventure. I'm slowly starting to try, like I had a goal to try and join the Century Travelers Club by the end of next year.
Okay. All right.
And I still have like 30 countries to get to, or 30 things to get to. So I'm doing a little train trip through Europe and like checking off a couple like small countries I've never been to just to do it.
What are the start and end points of your trip?
Well, I mean, I'll start in London, and then I'll end in Rome, and then I fly back because I fly home from London, so I'll just fly back to London.
Okay, cool. So you're sticking on the west side.
Yeah, for now. I mean, gotcha. I've only got like a week and a half, so it's like I'm basically spending a night or two in each little stop, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's a very busy time. It's a very busy time for the working.
So what's your, like, I'm a bit of an audiophile. I'm like, you know, a casual audiophile. So okay. What's your go-to, I don't know, your go-to brand?
Well, so since I do monitors, so I do the sound for the band on stage.
Yeah.
And we all use the Ultimateers 18s, like the molded in-ear monitors.
Ultimateers 18, in-ear monitors.
Yes, sir. And they're actually molded to your ear, like your ear canal and your all of that. So they'll you have to go to an audiologist and have your ears molded. And then you send them in and they make a special pair for you.
Holy shit. Okay, so this is blowing my mind for two reasons. A, I didn't know that Ultimate Ears was in the professional market.
Yeah, so they're like, I think they might be the biggest in the professional market, the biggest company in the professional audio world.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm a casual audiophile. Wow, I had no idea. Okay,
Sure.
so then I had no idea that there was even such a thing as an in-ear monitor. I assumed that they all had to be either, tabletop, or large speakers or over ears.
No, so they're like think about this. Think about you watch, some band play and they've got those things in their ears, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an in-ear monitor. So it's molded to be flush with your ear. I mean, honestly, that's what I'm talking to you, like listening to you on right now.
Just casually a $2,000 pair of headphones.
Casually, I get shit for it all the time because I use them as my just regular headphones
as your everyday.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple pairs and I keep one safe for sure.
Yeah, well, I think that's so funny that because there's so many people who out there who are into sound who will they get very focused on specs, and they'll hate on the way that something has been tuned, and they'll shit on the Bose tuning, or they'll shit on Harman Kardon tuning or whatever. And then, and they're just like, no, this product is terrible. Even if it's like a $300 pair of headphones, but then you're like, yeah, I got a $50 pair of shitty Sonys, and they were great, But and you're in the industry, and you don't have that same sort of pretentiousness about the sound. I've got two pairs. I've got a wired pair of. Are you familiar with One More? Have you heard of them?
I feel like I've seen the name.
It's just the number one and then more. It's a triple driver in-ear headphone. They're like $100. Sound quality blows me away. I've had them for a couple of years. And then I've got a pair of wireless Bluetooth Jaybird X3s, and those are by far my favorite headphones for traveling. The sound quality is insane. They're durable. The battery life is incredible. They have a great app that lets you tune it to your own. That's honestly, that's my favorite part, is that you can tune your own. You can tune it yourself, and then they have custom tuning from other high quality engineers or whatever, and
sure.
You can choose the presets. But there's really granular control over it, much more than just like your average EQ. And you can really tune them to your own liking, and you get whatever sound quality out of it that you want, which is amazing.
Yeah, I like that. That seems really nice, actually. So let's talk about your blog for a second. What compelled you to start this blog?
Yeah, what compelled me to start it? Well, that's such a big question. So I'll try to minimize it.
Go ahead.
I started it. Okay, I'll expand a little. So I started it really just as a personal register of my travels, because I have a terrible memory, and I know that I have a terrible memory. So I wanted to be able to just basically journal about my travels and be able to go back and be like, oh yeah, I did that thing, and this is how I was feeling at that time. And so I started this blog, and at the time I was just traveling to Australia, and my plan was to just go to Australia for like 3 to 6 months and then come home.
Okay.
And so when it started, my blog was actually called Honestly Australia. because I don't know, I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah, I mean, and Australia's great.
And Australia's great. However, like I kind of had a little bit of a problem when my trip ended up going for a lot longer than 3 to 6 months, and I ended up in other countries. The Australia branding didn't work out so well, so I had to switch things up a little bit, and you know, it really just evolved over time. So it started as this personal register for myself and something for my family to keep up with, so that I didn't have to call them every single day, and you know, so they knew that I was still alive. And then at a certain, there was the sort of a tipping point in 2011 where I thought, like, okay, you know, like let's make this a real thing, but sort of, you know, as a hobby, and you know, sort of just see what happens. And at that point, I had really no idea what I was doing. I was just you know, going in totally blind with zero understanding about content or content marketing, or you know, readership value, or email marketing, or social media, or any of these things. So I just kind of did it as a hobby for a number of years, and was essentially working as blogger by day and bartender by night. And I guess going back to before the blog, I was working in IT in the Boston area, and that was straight out of college. And I had graduated right into the middle of a recession, and so I couldn't find an actual job that would take me on full time anywhere. And so the realization was, well, if the United States is having an economic crisis, then I should go to a country that is not having an economic crisis. So I went to Australia and traveled for a little while, and then was using bartending as a way to sort of support my travel habit, if you will. And I started working as a bar back at this dirty nightclub in Cairns, Australia. And it was great. I loved every second of it. And then sort of worked my way up from bar back to bartender to cocktail bartender, and then ended up working in some of the best cocktail bars around the world. And so during this whole bartending experience, I was working as a bartender by night and then blogger by day. So I had these two things going simultaneously. And then just in 2015, is that right? Yeah, in about 2015, I made the full-time switch, and have not been bartending since then, but have been full-time blogging.
Nice. That's a story. So you full-time blog now, and obviously it pays your bills?
Pays my bills.
That is incredible. I feel like that's everyone's dream in this day and age. Look, don't get me wrong. I love it. I love the freedom that it allows me. I get to do some really amazing things. But at the same time, it's a job, right? And so, and there is no such thing as the perfect job, and every job has its downsides. And so, you know, I don't want to like immediately jump into the negatives, although I guess that is kind of what I'm doing. But like, it is the quote unquote dream life, but it's also really important to recognize that there is a flip side to that, and that there are a lot of drawbacks to living nomadically for a long time. And then like being your own boss, being an entrepreneur, had the struggles, the mental struggles, the personal challenges are all very, very real and very difficult. And so, I get to do some really great stuff. I'm very, very grateful for the work that I do. But, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of it's still work, and I still have to do a lot of things I don't want to do. Yeah, of course. What are some of the drawbacks of doing this?
I think the biggest one is having a never-ending to-do list. Like when you work for somebody else, it's very easy to just go into the office. You have your you have your deliverables. You have your things that you have to do for the day. You have your project that you have to complete by a certain date, and you just do that thing, and you have a steady paycheck coming in for it. And it's when 5 o'clock comes around, you walk out, or maybe it's 6 or maybe it's 7 or whatever it is, but you walk out and you go home and you don't have to think about work until the next day. Whereas I never really stop working, right? I work in some form every day of my life. And so that can be exhausting.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be really exhausting.
But, they say, if you do the thing that you love, you never work a day in your life. And, there's some truth to that, but also it's, I guess one of the other downsides is that when you monetize the thing that you love, you start to love it a little bit less.
Yep, I know that from my career. 100%.
And, yeah, and so that's a really big struggle. And so I've found in the past, in the past year or so, there some aspects of this that I've started to really love a lot less. And so I'm working on implementing some processes and changing up my business model in some ways so that I can get back to doing the things that I love and doing less of the things that I hate.
That's good.
And so it's all just like, that's business evolution, but then also just for the sake of my own sanity and my own mental health, like taking care of myself and getting back to living the passionate life that I want to be living. This past, and that's not to say that I'm not. This past year has just been very, very work focused, and honestly, I needed that. But this is the year of transition.
Back to pleasurable and not so work.
Exactly. Hopefully.
What has your work brought you this year that's been so stressful, I guess? Like, where have you been? What have you been doing?
Well, there's not like, it's the everyday hustle that can be a little bit stressful. But I used to do really awesome things. I mean, this year, I'd have to actually, let me pull out my little tracker. This year I started keeping track of all my trips because I know how bad my memory is.
That's actually an amazing idea. I just kind of jot stuff down in notebooks when I travel, but I should really keep track.
No, so this year I started doing a travel tracker where I'm actually keeping track of every single flight that I take, how many legs, how many miles I fly, which airline I'm flying, what the route is, everything like that.
Wow.
And so I think it'll just be really interesting to see at the end of the year how many flights, how many miles I flew. Because, at the end of last year, I was kind of like, I really have no idea what I did this year. And so I think it'll be interesting to see, the year-end numbers.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, so as an example, this year, at the end of last year, I started working with Google as an ambassador for their hashtag Team Pixel.
Okay.
Not really a campaign. It's an ongoing thing. So, Google brought us out to Salt Lake City for the Sundance Film Festival and snowboarding and just like hitting the mountains, going to movie premieres, and that was just like a highlight trip. So that was January. Then from there I went to Whistler, And I was out there and we did like insane snowmobiling to the top of mountains in insane whiteout conditions with like 6 feet of snow. And like that was pretty incredible. And then I guess the other trip that I did was out to your neck of the woods. I was working with Harman Kardon and went out to Bend for Subaru Winterfest. And that was more snowboarding. So we hit Mount Bachelor, complete whiteout conditions again, which actually I think is pretty par for the course on Mount Bachelor. But
I've seen some pretty nice photos from Mount Bachelor in the winter that aren't completely whiteout, but close.
Yeah. At the top of the mountain, you could not see a thing, which is actually I've been snowboarding for a long time, but I've never really snowboarded in such whiteout conditions like that. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking because when you can't see 10 feet in front of you,
I'm sure it makes it hard.
It makes you become very nervous and you can't really commit to your path. You can't commit to your legs because you don't know what's about to pop up in front of your board. Like there might be a tree 20 feet in front of you that you can't even see. Yeah. So that was a fun experience. So so then I went to Bend, and then I went to Portland. I've come back, so I'm based in DC, and I've been working a bunch for the past couple of months, and then in a couple weeks I'm heading out to Oahu. I'm working on a project with Travel and Leisure, and from there I'll be heading over to Spain, and then later this year I'll be doing Tanzania, maybe Kenya, going to Egypt, and sort of filling in all the blanks from there. So I mean, I have my stressful, negative day-to-day moments, as I think anybody does, but in the grand scheme of things, I have a lot of really cool stuff going on.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, the Africa stuff alone sounds great.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm going with my mom, actually.
That is amazing. She's going with you to all of those places?
Not all those places. Just so we're doing Tanzania, maybe Kenya, and then Egypt.
Okay, gotcha.
And my mom is a very spiritual, hippy dippy, earthy crunchy granola type, and it rubs off on me. I'm a little bit that way too. So sure. She's really, really excited to go to Egypt because there's just so much in the way of spiritual meaning that I think she is expecting that to be kind of the spiritual pinnacle of her life. And so I'm really, really excited to be able to share that experience with her.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I've been discussing with my mother about taking her to Italy because she's never really left the Midwest. It's the one place she wants to go. Is she said since I was a kid, I want to go to Tuscany before I die. So
what's the reason?
They're like literally. I think it's only because she's seen movies that are based there, and she just thinks the landscape is incredible.
It's so funny. People are drawn to different countries sometimes for absolutely no reason. I bought that initial ticket to Australia back in 2010 for no real particular reason. I just had this draw to the country of Australia, and I don't know why. I knew literally nothing about the country. And I went, my expectations were all totally wrong, but I for some reason just wanted to go there, and I had no idea why. So I find it really interesting that people can be drawn to places for no particular reason.
Maybe it's just the curiosity of the place. I don't know if I'm necessarily drawn, but I want to physically go everywhere. And I want to see everything. I went to Mongolia last year, and I had no expectations. I didn't really know what to expect, and I was blown away. Like, the city is whatever. Ulaanbaatar is kind of, it's just a city. But the countryside was breathtaking. The people were incredible. Like, the food was cool. I ate horse, and I thought it was delicious, which is not something I think I would normally do.
I believe it, man. I totally get it. I think, I think having expectations will ruin an experience. And so going in with zero expectations is by far the best way. If you have no expectations, you are guaranteed an amazing time. But if you go in expecting something, it's never going to meet them and you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good way to look at it, for sure.
So I think you did the smart thing there. And I haven't been to Mongolia. I've been close to Mongolia, but some of the landscapes and the desert out there is just, it's otherworldly. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. But would definitely love to get out there and do a little bit of yurt living for some time.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty. As like the best part was, as Americans, you don't need a visa, so you can just go, or buy a ticket and go, which is great. I really like.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. I didn't until I was researching the trip, because I ended up taking a train trip from London to Hong Kong. And
whoa,
yeah,
that's cool.
So Mongolia was somewhere towards the end, but I was there for, I don't know, like 15 days. And I think
how long did that whole trip take you?
The total, I was gone 9 weeks. And I think I figured it out. I was on the train for a total of 9.5 days.
Okay, so basically 1 out of 9 weeks.
Yeah. And I mean, I stopped, I'd gone through, I started in London and I went up through Scandinavia and then took the train across to Russia and into Mongolia. Cool. I took the Trans-Mongolian. I don't know. It changes its name once it gets farther east. Everything gets a little bit weirder once you start going east. I mean, in that, it actually
in that region,
it actually gets incredible in Siberia. I thought Siberia was so amazing. Have you been?
I haven't, but that is in the, I was going to say top 3, but that actually might be number 1 on my list.
Yeah, it's for sure. I would advise, I would go back tomorrow if I had the opportunity. There was I'm a sucker for the train, always and forever. I think the longest I rode the train in Russia was 3 days straight before I got cabin fever.
without ever getting off?
There are 20-minute stops here and there that you can get off the train, but it's not you buy a snack at the thing that's on the platform and you stretch your legs. Yeah. There's a train that goes north of Lake Baikal that I want to do. That's kind of, according to everything I read, it was kind of one of those things where it's not any tourists do it. So it would be kind of fun, but it adds I think it adds 4 days onto the trip getting to Vladivostok, which is a lot. But it'd be fun.
Yeah, but whatever.
Yeah,
you got time, right?
That's exactly it. And obviously you put that time in your trip and you go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm dying to get out there. That part of the world really fascinates me. Eastern Europe, specifically, and then just that whole surrounding region. It's funny. I've seen very little of Western Europe because I don't know. I'm not. It doesn't draw me in the same way. I don't. you know, like they have amazing food. There's incredible culture and beautiful landscapes and all that. But I don't know. There's something different, something a little bit more strange and unique about that eastern side of Europe, and I really love it.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. I remember being in I don't even know, Eastern, like the Eastern Bloc as they call it sometimes, and it was it was great. The people were awesome. The food is interesting.
Where did you go?
So on tour I'd done a lot of like the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Poland, Hungary, you know, things like that. And then on my own, I've done like a few of those same places, Croatia, Turkey, Greece. There's still a lot of those countries that I'm trying to get back to, but you know, eventually I'll get there.
Yeah, one day.
One day. Yeah, as sad as it sounds. Okay, so if you could give the listeners one travel tip to finish this, what would you give? What would you say to them?
One travel tip?
Yeah.
If it scares you, do it.
And then tell them where they can follow along on your travels and your adventures and things.
Yeah, you can find me at Travel Freak, and you can find me at www.travelfreak.net.
I would like to thank my guest, Jeremy Scott Foster, the Travel Freak. When you get a second, head on over to travelfreak.net and check out his blog. There's some pretty cool stuff on there, especially if you're trying to live location independent, as they call it. So yeah, again, I'd like to thank Jeremy. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. Be sure to check us out on social media. We have Instagram, Twitter, and even a Facebook page. All of them are at Lost in Transit PC. If you could take a second to rate and review the podcast while you're listening to it on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever it is you listen to, that would be incredible. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, have any ideas for guests, please feel free to shoot me an email at lostintransitpc@gmail.com. Until next time, I've been your host, Spud Groshong, and get lost.